My name is Clara Mitchell. I'm 34 years old, and I never intended to eavesdrop. But before I pushed the door open to join the party, I heard my mother laughing loudly, her voice ringing out, "That Clara is nothing but a stupid ATM." My younger sister chimed in, "For my wedding, she'll cover everything. We won't lose a thing." I froze. My heart nearly stopped beating. 3 weeks later, they held the engagement party for my sister in that very same house, but I had already changed the locks, and that house would become the place where I exposed the truth before neighbors, relatives, and thousands watching live online. Before I tell you the whole truth, I want to know, where are you watching this video from? And if you've ever been taken advantage of just because of your kindness or sacrifice, hit like and subscribe, because the story you're about to hear will prove that silence never protects you. I work as a financial employee at a large company in Denver. After a divorce that dragged on for nearly a year, I managed to keep my grandparents' small farmhouse in Colorado Springs that was left to me, the place where I once spent an entire summer at age 12, lying in the grass, reading books amidst the sound of crickets, listening to my grandmother tell war stories under the flicker of a kerosene lamp. I once thought of selling the house to ease financial pressure, but then my mother, Janet, said this was the perfect place for the whole family to gather on weekends, that a family needs a place to hold together. My younger sister Emma, my mother's golden child, agreed, along with her boyfriend, Trevor. I reluctantly kept the house, not for myself, but for something fragile deep inside. I thought that if I tried hard enough, they would finally see me. I began repairing the house, replacing the roof, installing new windows, even investing in a security camera system around the backyard because my mother often forgot to lock the door. I gave her a spare key, believing she would cherish it as if it were part of our memories. From then on, every weekend, the whole extended family flocked there, eating, camping, even celebrating birthdays and Easter. They called it the second home nest, while I quietly shouldered all the utility bills, maintenance, and property taxes. At times, I truly felt like the one holding them together, and I had a small sense of pride in that. I still believed that one day my mother would embrace me and say, "My daughter, you've done it." But instead came sleepless nights, opening and reopening bank spreadsheets, struggling to juggle the mortgage. I was skilled with numbers at work, but in this family, I was always just an odd figure, unnoticed. That evening, rain unexpectedly began to fall lightly after work. A client meeting in Boulder was canceled at the last minute, so I decided to drive straight to the farmhouse. On the passenger seat sat a box of Southern-style peach pastries, the kind Emma once said, "tastes like childhood," and a bottle of red wine I bought to honor the day my grandparents were married. I thought I would surprise them. My car turned onto the Pine Line Trail, and the porch light was already glowing warmly. I was surprised. No one had mentioned they would come today. Turning off the engine from afar, I stepped softly, the chill of the night mist creeping into my collar. I was about to push the door open, but just as I reached the porch steps, I heard loud laughter echoing from inside. It was my mother's voice, unmistakable, along with a few others I knew well. I froze, still holding the pastry box, leaning closer, with my ear against the wooden frame. And then, a sentence pierced through all the summers I once sat listening to my mother's stories. That Clara is nothing but a stupid ATM, pouring money into that cursed house without a clue. They laughed, a long, hearty laugh. None of them knew I was standing on the porch, wet with rain, my heart pounding so hard it ached. Then I heard Emma add, "She thinks throwing me an engagement party is some big honor. Let's see how much further she'll go." I don't remember how I withdrew, only the sound of my tires scraping away from the gravel road like something tearing apart a piece of my childhood. The pastry box was still in my hand, unopened, and in my head, Only one phrase kept repeating, "Stupid ATM." I did not sleep. Not a single minute. All night, I just sat in my Denver apartment, the yellow lamp casting its glow onto a cup of cold tea. The peach pastry box still lay untouched on the table, the wrapper unbroken. I picked up my phone, scrolling back through the security camera recordings. The system I had installed to protect my family, not to protect myself from them. Every word they spoke last night was captured, crystal clear. Every laugh, every insult, and secrets I had never imagined. Emma said she paid Clara's rent once, but in reality, she used that money to spend 3 weeks in Cancun. My mother's voice, steady as if she were just telling a kitchen tale. And Aunt Carol. She claimed she needed money for dental work, but then showed off a brand new Italian sofa with built-in massage. Someone chuckled. Uncle Mike's no better, texting her for car repairs, then buying a fishing boat and posting on Facebook with the caption, "Finally rewarding myself after 30 years as a model husband." Some model, scamming his own niece? My hand shook as I scrolled, breath shallow. Then my mother's voice rang out sharper than ever. Emma's wedding is coming up. Clara will cover $15,000, just as we agreed before. No one objected. No one asked if I agreed. To them, I was a walking wallet. I sat there, gripping the phone, my blood like ice. Every bit of affection, every fragile hope I had once held, that my mother would someday see me as a good daughter, that my sister would eventually learn gratitude, all of it collapsed like a thin curtain before a winter gust. And what cut me deeper was not the money. It was that they no longer even felt the need to hide it from me. I opened my laptop, created a folder titled The Truth, and in my head, a whisper began to echo, slow and deliberate. If they think I'm stupid, I'll prove them wrong. I saved the recording, turned off the laptop screen, but my heart wouldn't turn off. Some wounds bleed without a knife. I remember leaving my apartment when the clock was near 2 a.m. Not to run away, but because if I stayed, I feared I would keep finding excuses to forgive them once more. I drove aimlessly through Denver's empty streets, cold wind slapping against the glass, with only a hollow space inside me, not from losing money, but from losing the family I thought I had. Tears came without summoning. No one has ever hurt me the way my family has. I remembered. When I was 10, my mother scolded me just because I spilled a glass of milk on Emma's birthday table. While everyone was taking photos, she dragged me into the kitchen, whispering cold as a blade, "You always ruin things. Look at Emma, so smart, so well-behaved. And you? Always sloppy, never good at anything." I stood in the corner through the whole party, watching Emma unwrap gifts, clutching a milk-stained napkin in my fist. The year I earned a scholarship to college, my father said, "Good, but finance isn't as exciting as fashion design, like Emma." Every time I succeeded, they found a way to make it small. And every time Emma failed, they blamed circumstances. I lived my entire life in the shadow of a favored sister, and I kept telling myself that if I just tried hard enough, one day I would be acknowledged. But last night proved it. I will never be enough in their eyes. I am not the good daughter. I am not the one keeping the family together. I am only a convenient source of money, an ATM that installs cameras, that cooks, that opens her wallet on cue. I stopped on a hill overlooking the city, the lights below glittering like cracks across a frozen lake. I sat there for hours, my heart growing colder than the night air. And then, I whispered to myself, each word deliberate, like an oath, "They think I'm stupid. I'll prove them wrong." The next morning, I returned to the office like any ordinary person. No one at the company knew what had happened the night before. I still sat through the audit meeting, still signed papers as usual, but inside, I was no longer the weak Clara of yesterday. I was someone making a plan. That noon, I had a financial consultation with a longtime client, a young couple trying to balance a home loan. I sat with them in a small conference room, opened the spreadsheet, explained every number, every option in detail. The husband sighed with relief when he saw a solution, and the wife squeezed my hand, whispering, "Thank you. Because of you, we feel we can take control of our lives." I smiled, nodded. They did not know that their words pierced me like a needle. I too needed to take control of my life, instead of letting others drain it. That evening, I reopened the folder, The Truth. This time, not just to replay the recording, but to begin gathering every piece of evidence I could retrieve. I combed through old emails, transfer messages, bank histories. The texts from my mother like, "Send Carol $500 for me, I'll pay you back next week." Or, "Uncle Mike had an accident, send $1,200 quickly, urgent." None of it was ever repaid. I downloaded every piece, naming each file precisely. Janet, request, 23 March. Emma, rent, 24 June. I once thought I did this out of love, now I did it to restore the truth. 2 days later, I met Rachel, my best friend from college, now an in-house lawyer at a major financial corporation, at a quiet cafe near City Park. She was the only person I trusted to understand without judgment. When I handed her the USB and began telling the story, Rachel did not ask why. She only looked at me for a long moment and then said one short sentence. "They've gotten used to exploiting you because you stayed silent. If you want to change that, don't say a word. Let them expose themselves." I stayed silent. On the table sat 2 cappuccinos gone cold and a bank statement over 17 pages long. In that moment, I knew. This game would no longer be played by their rules. I would not scream, would not confront. I would be quiet and precise. 3 days later, I met with Alyssa, my cousin, who managed a furniture store in downtown Denver. She was struggling with credit card debt and had asked me for personal financial advice. We chose a cozy cafe in Cherry Creek, the kind of place I used to visit each winter to find balance. Alyssa was soft-spoken, but always perceptive. As soon as I opened the spreadsheet, she hesitated, looking at me. "Clara, this may sound strange, but are Emma and Trevor still doing okay?" I looked up, surprised. "What do you mean?" Alyssa bit her lip. "Last week I went to Aspen with some friends. We stayed at Aspen Lodge, and I happened to see Trevor with Naomi, Emma's best friend, at the front desk. They booked a private room. No one else was with them." The space around me seemed to slow down. I heard the sound of a coffee cup being set down at the table behind us, loud and sharp. Alyssa rushed on. "I can't say for certain, but the way they walked together, it didn't look like friends. And Naomi, you know, she never liked your sister." I drew a deep breath. My hand on the table felt cold, as if someone had switched off all the lights in my chest. But I did not react. I only nodded slightly and said quietly, "Thank you for telling me the truth." That evening, back home, I revisited the image of Naomi in my memory. Eyes sharp as knives. The mocking smile when I spoke of Emma's engagement party plans. The sidelong glance at Trevor during Christmas dinner. The broken fragments now fit into a bare truth. Trevor, my sister's fiancé, was cheating with her closest friend. I was not angry, not even hurt. Only one thought remained. If Emma learns this, the wedding will collapse, but not yet. Every card will be played at the right time. One late afternoon during the week, my phone rang. It was my mother. I hesitated, but picked up. Her voice rang out clear, unashamedly demanding, "Clara, your sister wants to hold her engagement party at the farmhouse. You'll cover $5,000 for the catering and decorations. Consider it your gift to Emma. It's an honor for you as well." I stayed silent. On the other end, Emma chimed in, excited. Don't forget the white hydrangeas, sis. I love those the most. Trevor laughed mockingly, loud enough for me to hear. As long as Clara pays for everything, no problem. Inside me, a cold fury rose. But this time I did not protest. I lowered my voice, as if agreeing. All right, I'll handle it. Everything will be perfect. On the other end, laughter erupted, joyous. They thought I was still their obedient ATM. The moment I hung up, I reopened the map inside my mind. This was the chance. I called Rachel, urgent meeting at her law office. When I laid out my plan, Rachel leaned back, her eyes a mix of surprise and admiration. Clara, you don't need to ruin a party to prove anything to them, but if you've decided, make sure every piece of evidence is on your side. So that when they react, you won't need to shout, just press play. I nodded. The night before the party, I drove alone to the farmhouse in darkness. I replaced every lock, the old keys now useless. All the fake flowers, lights, happy engagement banners they had arranged through vendors, I quietly took down, stacking them neatly in the garage. I left the house bare, cold, like a stage before the curtain falls. Driving away, I watched the house in my rearview mirror. A strange feeling washed over me. Not guilt, but clarity. For the first time in years, I no longer felt powerless. I whispered to myself, tomorrow, the roles will switch. I am no longer the audience. I will be the one writing the script. The next morning, as the sun rose over the Rockies, my farmhouse stood silently in the light. No balloons, no hydrangeas, no soft music, only the green lawn and the wooden doors with their new locks. Around 10 o'clock, a convoy of cars turned onto the trail. I stood upstairs, behind a thin curtain, watching. First came my mother Janet's SUV, then Robert, my father, driving his old pickup. Emma followed, dressed in pale pink, with Trevor at her side, carrying a gift box like a false savior. Behind them came relatives, all dressed as though for a royal wedding. They gathered at the front door, chatting cheerfully. Emma pulled out her key, shoved it in, twisted. Nothing. Trevor tried the back door. Locked. Voices rose. What's going on? Where's Clara? Is she playing games with us? My phone buzzed endlessly. The screen lit up. Mom. I answered but said nothing. I simply pressed play on the recording from that fateful night. Janet's voice cutting through, cold. That Clara is nothing but a stupid ATM. The sound hissed through the speaker, loud enough for everyone outside to hear. From above, I saw Janet freeze, her hand dropping the phone to the ground. Emma's mouth hung open, Trevor's face darkened, and my father lowered his head, unable to look at anyone. A strange silence swept over them, heavy enough to hear the birds on the fence. Neighbors began to peek out, some even stepping onto their porches, whispering, "What's happening over there?" I saw Mrs. Mary, who had lived next to my grandparents for decades, standing with her arms crossed, shaking her head as if to say the truth had finally come out. In that moment, I did not feel joy. Only a sharp ache in my chest, because this humiliation could have been avoided if they had not made me their victim. But I knew this was only the beginning. I set the phone down, letting them scramble outside. The stage was set, and they, the ones who thought they controlled everything, were now nothing but clumsy puppets, performing before an audience of the entire neighborhood. The whispers of the neighbors had not yet faded when Emma began to lose control. She pounded on the door, screaming, "Clara, open up now! This is a family house. You have no right to do this." Trevor stood beside her, trying to hold her back, but his eyes darted nervously, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. I knew. This was the moment. I lifted my phone, this time not an audio recording, but an image. A photo I had just received from Alyssa after our cafe meeting, a snapshot of Trevor and Naomi standing close together at the Aspen Lodge reception desk. Trevor held a credit card, Naomi leaning lightly against his shoulder, a half smile on her lips. I pressed send into the family group chat. Just seconds later, Emma's phone lit up in her hands, the image flashing brightly for all to see. What? What is this? Emma gasped, voice breaking, her hands trembling. Trevor quickly grabbed the phone, stammering. I was just helping Naomi book a room, that's all. I pressed send again. This time, it was the 3-night booking receipt in the names of Trevor Spencer and Naomi D., secretly photographed by Alyssa at the counter. Black and white proof, undeniable. The crowd of neighbors was no longer whispering, but buzzing openly. My God, right in front of his fiancée. Shameless. Emma sobbed, mascara streaming down her cheeks like dark rivers. She hurled the phone onto the grass, turning to Trevor. You betrayed me. With my best friend? Trevor flushed red, mouth opening, but her hand struck across his face with a sharp crack that split the silence. He stammered meaningless words, then bolted, running straight to his car, speeding off in a cloud of dust. The whole neighborhood fell silent for a few seconds, broken only by Emma's ragged, tearing sobs. I gently drew the curtain closed, inhaling deeply. My heart did not feel joy, only a bitter weight. The truth always reveals itself, not because I screamed, but because they tore their own masks away. As Trevor drove away, the scene outside the farmhouse dissolved into chaos. Emma collapsed on the grass, wailing, my mother frantically tugging at her daughter's dress, my father standing frozen like stone, while relatives hovered, unsure whether to comfort or to flee. I knew that if I left things to die in silence, within weeks they would twist the story into Clara selfishly ruined her sister's wedding. This time, I would not let the truth be warped. I opened my phone, switched on the camera. My face appeared on the screen, dry eyes, voice calm to the point of cold. Hello, Mitchell family. I'm Clara, and this is the truth. I turned the camera toward the window. The Facebook live stream showed everything clearly. Emma hunched and broken, Janet with her head bowed, Robert trembling behind her, relatives darting away from the lens. I pressed play on the recording. That Clara is nothing but a stupid ATM. The words echoed across the broadcast. I then displayed the photo of Trevor and Naomi, followed by the booking receipt. Within minutes, the viewers multiplied, dozens to hundreds, then thousands. Comments poured in. Unbelievable that parents would say this about their own child. Poor Clara, a lifetime of being used. Trevor is nothing but a cowardly cheat. Distant relatives, long swayed by Janet's stories, now appeared in the comments too. An uncle wrote, Clara, I'm sorry. Now I finally see what you've endured. A cousin left. We laughed at you, but it was all their doing. My mother clutched her face, sobbing, Stop it, Clara. You're killing this family. But I only looked straight into the camera, my voice unwavering. Not me. It's your lies that are killing it. In the neighbor's eyes, I saw the undeniable truth. My family, once so sure they could control everything in the dark, was now laid bare under the daylight, before the entire community. And there was no place left to deny it. I ended the live stream, but did not turn off the camera. I opened the front door and stepped onto the porch. The entire family whipped around, faces etched with shock. I did not scream, did not rage. My voice was steady, but every word fell like stone. All of you, leave my house, now. My mother Janet rushed forward, tears streaming. Clara, you can't do this, we're family, you're destroying yourself. I met her gaze directly. No, mother, you destroyed me long ago. My father, Robert, kept his head down, avoiding my eyes, his trembling hand pulling my mother back. Emma sat collapsed on the grass, mascara streaked, choking. Why would you do this to me, Clara? My fists clenched as I answered flatly, No, Emma. I didn't do this to you. I stopped letting you and Mother keep doing it to me. I pulled from my pocket a thick stack of papers, the bank statements, messages, and recordings, all notarized by Rachel. I raised them high before everyone. What I posted online was only the beginning. Starting tomorrow, I will file legal claims to reclaim every dollar you exploited from me. Not a cent will be spared. The air thickened. Janet wailed, clutching her head, but could not deny a word. Robert gripped her shoulders tightly, whispering, "Enough, Janet. We have nothing left to say." I turned, stepped back into the house, and slammed the door shut. For the first time in my life, the farmhouse felt truly quiet. No more false chatter, no more mocking laughter. I stood in the empty room, breathing deeply, and I whispered, like a declaration, "I am no longer an ATM. I am the master of my life." Outside, the footsteps slowly faded, leaving only the vast silence. I knew then, the chapter had closed, by my own hand. A week after I slammed the door in my family's face, the farmhouse returned to its original silence. No more endless cars, no more forced laughter. I walked through the bright kitchen, listening to the wind drift through the new windows, and felt light, as though for the first time I truly owned this place. I no longer answered when my mother called, no longer read her long messages or any from the family. I had cut contact, not with anger, but with peace. I would not have to attend a wedding I never wanted, because Emma ended the engagement right after that day. The wedding turned to smoke, and to me, that was not sorrow, but liberation. I began a new chapter by turning what had been a burden into an opportunity. I cleared each room, repainted the walls, hung up photos of Colorado landscapes I had taken on hikes. I listed the farmhouse as a homestay. Within a week, the first guests arrived. A young couple from Texas with their 2 children. The children's laughter rang across the garden. The gentle sound of piano drifted from the wife's hands in the living room. I stood on the porch, watching the sunset blaze behind the mountains, and saw the house return to its true purpose. Not a place that swallowed me in debt and selfishness, but a space holding joy, freedom, and even profit. In my notebook, I wrote, "Every day I live without depending on their approval is a day I am truly free." I thought all I needed was to cut ties with my family and continue in peace. But one evening, sitting in my Denver apartment and rereading the notes in the Truth folder, I suddenly thought, if I stay silent, how many others will go on suffering the same thing without ever daring to speak? So I started a personal blog, calling it Financial Boundaries. In the first post, I wrote in detail about being exploited, about how my family turned me into an ATM, and about the moment I stood and drew a line. I didn't embellish, I just told it plainly. Each small story, each concrete wound. I didn't expect that within days, the blog would be shared everywhere. An online financial magazine ran a piece titled, "A Denver Woman Stands Up Against Financial Manipulation in Her Own Family." The comments flooded with empathy. "Thank you. I was also exploited by my parents. Your story gave me the courage to say no to my brother's 10th request for money." Emails filled my inbox daily. Women from across America shared their stories. Siblings who drained their savings, parents who forced them to co-sign mortgages, relatives who bled them until their spirits broke. They thanked me for giving them a language to name their pain, financial boundaries. One night, I opened my laptop and read a message from a woman in Texas. "Without your post, I would have stayed silent for years more. Now I have the courage to say no to my parents." My vision blurred with tears. For the first time in years, I cried not from hurt, but from the realization that my story could become strength for someone else. One October morning, I sat in my familiar cafe near Capitol Hill, answering the flood of emails from women trying to escape toxic financial cycles. As I worked, Rachel walked in. She took off her coat, sat across from me, and placed a thick file on the table. "Clara, your blog has become a refuge for thousands, but you can't handle this alone. Have you thought about making it a nonprofit?" Her voice calm, steady. I stared at her, startled. Rachel continued. Your cousin emailed me, admitting he was wrong to mock you. Uncle Mike wrote a letter apologizing, admitting his greed. Even other relatives said they wanted to contribute, to make amends for leaving you to suffer. I was stunned. Perhaps in the darkest night of betrayal, there could still be sparks of remorse. I nodded, gripping Rachel's hand. If we do this, we'll do it right. Not just stories, but tools to help others stand up. Weeks later, the Financial Boundaries Foundation was born, a nonprofit dedicated to helping victims of financial manipulation within families. Rachel handled the legal work. I led content and outreach. We organized small workshops, teaching people how to document evidence, how to build independent financial plans. One evening, stepping into a rented hall in Denver, I saw dozens of women seated, their faces weary but hopeful. In that moment, I understood. My journey didn't end with reclaiming justice for myself. Together with Rachel, I was opening a path for many others, to show them they were not alone. One late autumn afternoon, while I was sorting files in my Denver apartment, the doorbell rang. I opened it, and there stood my father, Robert. He wore his old brown coat, hair grayer, eyes sunken from sleepless nights. In his trembling hand, he held an envelope, extending it. I bring nothing but an apology. I was silent. The image of him standing quietly in the background of every argument returned. When my mother insulted me, when Emma demanded more, he never spoke. That silence often cut deeper than words. Robert faltered. I was wrong, Clara. Wrong to let your mother's words wound you. Wrong to stay silent while they made you carry everything. I thought silence kept peace. But really, I lost you. My throat tightened, but I kept my voice steady. If you want to have your daughter again, it cannot begin with money. I am no longer the wallet you all pulled from at will. The only thing I need is respect. Robert looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. Tears streaked his wrinkled face. I promise. If I still have a chance, I want to begin again. Only as father and daughter. I stepped forward and embraced him tightly. In his arms, I did not feel the past erased, but I did feel one broken shard beginning to heal. It was not reconciliation for the whole family, but a small bridge between two estranged souls. A healing with conditions. Not perfect, but enough to let me move forward. I sat by the window of my Denver apartment, winter lights spilling over glass towers outside. Before me lay an old journal, blank page open as if waiting for a new chapter. Slowly, I wrote. I was not stupid. I only loved the wrong people, trusted the wrong places. And now, I have found myself again. I remembered the moment my father held me, his voice trembling. Don't let anyone decide your worth. That sentence echoed in my mind, like a bell ringing clear. I closed the journal, lifted my face to the afternoon light touching my skin. A faint smile curved at my lips, not the smile of victory, but of peace. I looked around the simple room, not luxurious, but mine. Here, no one called me an ATM. No one assigned me a role. Only a woman who had walked through betrayal, through pain, and now stood again on her own feet. I told myself, as if speaking to all who would hear this story. Real family is not blood. Real family is respect, is genuine love, is a place where you are yourself without being diminished. And as the sunset slipped down the distant Rockies, I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply. I knew my healing journey was not over, but today I had found the most important thing: freedom in my own heart. If you have stayed with me to this moment, I want to ask you, have you ever been turned into an ATM in your own family? Have you ever felt that love only existed as long as you could give money or sacrifice? Leave a comment below, share your story with me. because I believe every story can become strength for someone else. And if this story resonates with you, please hit like and subscribe. Let YouTube know that stories of boundaries, justice, and courage are worth spreading, because sometimes just one story can change the way we see ourselves.